Hello, everybody. This is Michael Petricone, Senior Vice President for Government Affairs, the Consumer Technology Association. And today we're going to be talking about self-driving cars, a revolutionary technology that has the power to transform everything from the way we move around the world to the way we design our cities and living spaces. Making this a reality, however, will require tremendous coordination between the government and the private sector. We are joined today by an extraordinary international expert panel to discuss how to get this done. We have with us Minister Rachel Maclean, Member of Parliament, United Kingdom Undersecretary of State in the Department of Transport, Jamie Boone, Director of Technology and Innovation Policy at Toyota North America, David Quinalty, Head of Federal Policy and Government Affairs at Waymo, and Finch Fulton, United States Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation Policy. So let's get the discussion started with quick statements from our panelists. Minister Maclean, tell us about how the UK government views automated vehicles and describe how they fit into the overall UK transportation plan.
Hi, Michael, and it's great to be here today. So we in the UK think that the potential economic and environmental and social benefits of this technology mean that the market for connected and self-driving vehicles in the UK could be vast. And we want the technology to help improve transport across the nation by making everyday journeys greener and safer and more flexible and more reliable. And we also want to take advantage of the economic opportunities. We believe that the market in the UK could be worth as much as £42 billion by 2035, capturing over 6% of the £650 billion global market, and of course creating 38,000 new jobs. And that's why in the UK, the government is proactively shaping the safe and secure emergence of self-driving vehicles, making the UK the best place in the world to develop and deploy the technology while ensuring that all areas of society benefit from its potentially transformative effects. We believe that the technology must be viewed as one part of a broader revolution in mobility if it is to be effectively regulated and integrated into the transport network. And therefore, policy supporting self-driving technology is being developed as part of our future transport strategy. And that's a programme that's focused on supporting transport innovation. And a key part of the programme is the Future of Transport Regulatory Review. And what we're doing there is exploring the biggest shake-up of transport laws in a generation, which will enable new technologies and business models to emerge, which will benefit society. And it's within this broad context that regulations supporting self-driving vehicle technology will continue to be developed by the government.
Great, thank you so much. Let's go to our government guest, Deputy Assistant Secretary Fulton. So at CES last year, Secretary Chow introduced AV 4.0, an initiative intended to unify automated vehicle policies across all federal departments. So 12 months later, how is that progressing and what needs to be done?
Well, I think it's been progressing very well, and it's all part of a long process where stakeholders have been actively engaged in shaping the department's approach. It's been bipartisan, it's been in line with Congress's intent, and I think it's going to keep going for that reason. I mean, if you look 4 years ago, the previous administration put out the first automated vehicle policy, which explored the universe of questions that the department needed to engage with. We came in, took a good hard look at that, and put out ADS 2.0. Which focused on the safety of the vehicle itself, and it has served as the cornerstone for all of our activities. A year later, we did AV 3.0, which brought together the whole Department of Transportation, aligning around a unified approach to this technology. And then, as you said, last year at CES, Secretary Chow unveiled AV 4.0, which brought together the 38 federal agencies that are working on automated vehicle policy. There's tons of work left to be done, including engaging with the UN ECE and our international partners on the standards for the technologies that are being developed over time. But if we look at the way the department's moving forward, there's a few broad categories, focusing on promoting collaboration and transparency through things like voluntary self-safety assessments and the AV Test Initiative, showing the sort of operations that are happening around the nation, continued stakeholder engagements with the active community, people that are investing in this technology, that are passionate about this technology, shaping the future of the technology, just in-depth research, which is available on our website, about projects we've done, projects that we're going to do around the safety of these systems, the future of these systems, of course, guidance documents, which have been terrific, and then the final rules that we've been kicking off, we've been researching, we've been engaging with people on, the exemptions that get us the data we need to finalize these rulemakings and to push them forward. We have 9 rulemakings on the agenda right now, including the first ever framework for the operations of automated vehicle systems, the principles that will lay out the path forward for the future for the next 4 years and beyond. So we've got a lot of work lined up. We're cranking on it now, and I'm just so interested to see what the next team is going to do with the future of the federal role in automated vehicle technologies. It's going to be very interesting.
That's terrific. Let's go to Jamie. Tell us a little bit about what Toyota North America is doing in the self-driving vehicle space.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for having me. Technology is just revolutionizing how we connect with each other, and no time has it been more evident than this year. The future of transportation is all about mobility for all, and it's all about innovation. And Toyota has been incredibly focused on increasing our mobility offerings for everybody. We're really focused in 3 key areas, and that is in innovative research and development, that's in advancing self-driving vehicles, and that is in creating unique mobility solutions for everyone. In particular, when it comes to our automated vehicle work, we're thinking about AVs as kind of in a two-prong system or vision, and that's in our Guardian and our Chauffeur visions. Guardian is really all about enhancing the human driving experience, and it's about amplifying human driving to make it safer and make it better. It's taking these levels of autonomy and the lessons learned from autonomy and putting it in vehicles in a way that is accessible now and usable now. And then Chauffeur is really that longer term, high level automation where there's no driver needed in the vehicle, which will be particularly helpful for people with mobility challenges and really help meet that goal that we all have of increasing mobility for people that aren't really able to access it now. So that two-prong system is going to be really important in recognizing the benefits of automation, both in the short term, in the near future, and further down the road and in that long-term future. And we're also focused on mobility as a service. We introduced the e-pallet concept at CES in 2018, and that's really meant to be a modular system that is autonomous and electric that you can build on top of and use it for all kinds of different needs and meet different needs, whether it's package delivery or accessibility, and really making sure that it's a system that works for everybody and that you have all of these different options. So that the ability to give our customers options is really important to Toyota.
That's great. Let's go to David. Tell us a bit about Waymo and your efforts in the self-driving space.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to CTA for having me here today. At Waymo, we're building the world's most experienced driver, and we're working to make it safe and easy for people and things to get where they're going. We apply the Waymo driver across a number of different applications, including ride-hailing, trucking, and local delivery. And in spite of the challenges posed by COVID-19, 2020 was a very productive year at Waymo. In March, we rolled out the 5th generation of our Waymo driver. We initiated regular testing between Dallas and Phoenix of our heavy-duty trucks. And over the last few months, we've opened our fully autonomous ride-hailing service in Chandler, Arizona, to the general public for commercial service. This is a ride-hailing service without any human operators in the vehicle. We're able to do all this today safely and legally within the regulatory framework here in the United States. While some observers claim that the U.S. lacks sufficient regulations for AVs, I can assure you that America's federal and state regulators are extremely focused and active on AVs. While there is much that policymakers within the U.S. can do to facilitate the safe and timely deployment of fully autonomous vehicles, it's a great sign for American competitiveness that the federal government and states like Arizona and California have been leading the world over the last several years on AV policy. I look forward to discussing this in more depth on today's panel. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So as we've already heard, the societal benefits of autonomous vehicles are enormous, but so are the unprecedented challenges of taking a new technology and fitting them into our existing transportation grid. So let me go to Rachel. This year, the Department of Transport announced a new consultation focused on bringing autonomous vehicles to UK roads. Tell us a bit about this and what questions are you seeking to answer?
Yes, exactly, Michael. And you're right that this tension is inherent in this work. So we are looking at automated lane keeping system, which is a system which is approved to an internationally agreed regulation, and that can control the vehicle on motorways at low speeds within a lane. So we held a call for evidence in the summer to seek views on our approach to enable its safe use on Britain's roads, and we're sort of working through the responses now. And the key question is whether a vehicle that's fitted with the ALKS is actually compliant with the definition of automation under our existing law. And that requires that the vehicle is capable of safely and lawfully driving itself without being controlled and without needing to be monitored by the driver when in automated mode. And we haven't yet made a decision on whether ALKS is compliant with that definition. But we do want to support innovation. So we've sought views on whether ALKS can be used safely at speeds of up to 70 miles per hour, which is obviously our maximum speed on our motorways, but that goes beyond the maximum operational speed permitted in the internationally agreed regulation. We're analysing the responses now, and we will be issuing a consultation ahead of our potential legislative changes, which we hope to come to in 2021. But we are expecting that vehicles with this technology will be available in the market from late next year, and so it is really important that we have the regulation ready for its introduction.
Interesting. And do you have a national UK goal or timeline for the introduction of self-driving cars?
Well, we are expecting, broadly speaking, to see sort of commercialised vehicles on the roads by 2025. I mean, clearly that date isn't set in stone, but that is what we are expecting roughly. We already have self-driving cars on our roads because we're testing them in a variety of environments, and we've actually carried out some of the most extensive trials in Europe already. A company called Streetwise has done that. Of course, we have all sorts of different environments in the UK with our urban and rural and strange street spaces. So it's really important that we do test those vehicles in those environments.
Great. Okay, so going over to Finch. So you're in a similar situation because you recently released a notice requesting public feedback regarding the automated driving systems framework. So can you tell us, what are you trying to learn here, and how does this fit into our national strategy?
Absolutely. Well, first, my favorite bit of feedback that we've gotten on this is, why did they wait so long to do this? And the simple answer is, we've been working with industry to figure this out. We've only just gotten this far, right? It's new, novel challenges. We're pressuring the department in different ways. We're learning from each other. So the standards that they've been based on, which have been developed by industry, they're voluntary consensus standards, we're really showing how these standards stack on one each other, whether they be engineering standards or process standards, to show the safety of the overall systems and to test out the safety cases and to answer the questions, did you think of this again and again and again? So we're developing this, and this is the first shot. It is based on industry standards. That's why I think in the future, the next administration will see the value in it and use it as a platform for the future of automated vehicle regulations going forward. I do think it'll stand the test of time. It will need improvements. We have to take public comment on it. It deserves every bit of attention. All of our industry partners, safety partners, advocates, critics, it deserves all of that attention, because I do believe that this is the path to the future for the regulation of the operations of the system. So we're thrilled with that. But we have to learn along the way, which I think is what's critical about industry partners sharing their confidence in the technology, being able to communicate to others what they're doing, what they're not doing, the capabilities and limitations of these systems, and in the way they deploy them. I think that's going to be critical to getting consumer confidence in the technology and the confidence of the regulators in the path forward. I think it's going to be critical. And so I think that as we engage, I really hope that the next team has discussions with industry. I hope that they have discussions with the professional career staff at DOT about what's happening here, because I do think that there's great work. It's based on expertise in the department. But as they shape their plans, I was on the transition team 4 years ago for this administration. The transition team's here now, working on these issues now. I hope that they are able to go through this and see the massive amount of work that's gone into where we are today and build on that in the future, because I think they'll actually be happy with what they found.
Good. And I certainly hope and believe there's a bipartisan appreciation of the enormous benefits of autonomous vehicles. Let's go over to David. So from a private sector point of view, how do you assess the current state of self-driving right now in the United States?
Yeah, so fully autonomous driving isn't the future. It's here today, at least for Waymo. And policymakers really need to be focused on this transformative technology, much in the way that both Finch and Rachel are. Policymakers also need to realize, however, that the growth of this technology is going to be incremental. It's not going to happen overnight. When it comes to new technologies, policymakers are often having to play catch up, which isn't really ideal for anyone. But because AVs are so top of mind for people today, and because AV deployment is going to be gradual, policymakers actually have the rare opportunity right now with a new technology where they have the time they need to work on getting the policies right. This is, I think, very much dovetails with what Finch was saying. You know, as legendary UCLA basketball coach John Wooden used to say, be quick, but don't hurry. And I think that's good advice for when it comes to AV policy. In the industry right now, there are a lot of different companies working on different technologies, pursuing different business models. And this innovation and competition is very healthy. It will drive further advancements in the safety and capabilities of AVs, but only if policymakers move quickly without rushing.
Right, and to add to the John Wooden quote, there's the famous Bill Gates quote that every year nothing changes, and every 10 years everything changes. And I think AVs are probably a perfect example of that. James,
Absolutely.
do you want to add just your take on what our current status is?
Yeah, I agree with David that the technology is just really advancing, and it's really exciting. There's so much more testing going on this year. Every year we learn so much more, and we're able to get these these vehicles out. And there's more consumer awareness, and that consumer awareness is incredibly important because at the end of the day, we need people to be able to understand the capabilities of these vehicles and to trust them, or else who are we building them for? So continuing to build on that awareness and the openness to that technology is incredibly important. And I think, we're really understanding the challenges that are before us in perfecting this technology. This isn't easy. There's a reason it's taken so long, and that it is taking as long as it is, because it's about safety, and safety is top of mind. It has to continue to be top of mind. So we really take that to heart at Toyota. It's incredibly important. Overall, the U.S. is a leader in AV development. It's happening here. The development is happening here. The testing is happening here. But it's happening across the world. It's happening in other countries as well. And I think collectively across the globe, you're seeing a lot of governments really make the efforts to get the policy where it needs to be. And that's going to be really important, especially on the deployment side. And when we talk about this a little bit later, what some of the challenges are there in getting these vehicles with more advanced designs and different approaches out into the vehicles. That's still a challenge that policymakers need to address. But I'm really confident in the work that has been done here so far by DOT, and I'm really hopeful that we'll continue down this path because I think it's the right one.
Great. So you were talking about the importance of safety, which of course is paramount and fundamental to this entire technology rollout. Rachel, tell us a bit about the UK's strategy for safety assurance. What are you doing, and how does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. We are taking this very seriously, and of course it is at the heart of the work that we're doing. So at the moment what we're looking is the whole regulatory framework, because we recognise that there is a whole concept here that we may need to define in law of an entity that would be responsible, whether that is the actual software or the vehicle itself, that is not the driver. So that is where we need to go to logically with this whole idea of automated driving. If we actually deem that something else other than the driver, the human operator, could be responsible. So that everything that we're doing sits within this overall framework. But in terms of the sort of safety side of things, we have a very well advanced testing infrastructure in the UK. So we have a testbed programme that we're spending £200 million on, and that's made up of 6 facilities all across England. And actually, we've got there a whole ecosystem that can take the development both virtually and physically, and that's open to companies around the world. And I think the other part of the work that we're doing is a process called CAV Pass, which is the connected and autonomous vehicles process for assuring safety and security. And what we're doing there is developing a comprehensive safety and assurance process. And we're still at the beginning of a lot of this work, but it is very new. And I think your comment that you made earlier, that change will happen very fast, is absolutely right. We need to put the time in now to make sure that we get those fundamentals right, and then we will see change happening very quickly.
Great. And from a safety and assurance standpoint, Finch, is there anything you want to add from us in the United States?
Yes, I think I heard the question. So, look, half of the testing on automated vehicles in the world is happening in the United States. You do have different approaches from different states and how they're approaching it. And of course, the federal government is trying to be consistent in how we approach it. But the one thing that I think is important is we're on top of it. We're working on it. We have all of our safety, defect, and recall authorities, and we don't make headlines with the way we engage with partners to assure safety of operations, but we do it. We don't put out press releases or go on Twitter and, smile near a crash or anything like that, but we do engage actively. And I think that's something that people, if they could see it better, they may appreciate it more. And so every vehicle that's on the road has to comply with the standards that have been laid out by the federal government. The operations have to comply with state operations, with local legislators being able to say what sort of operations can actually happen in the neighborhoods where people are actually experiencing these technologies, where the law enforcement officials have been engaged and informed. I'd give Q or David Quinalty credit. They do a great job of telling us what's happening and informing all of the stakeholders of the types of operations happening around them. And it's this level of engagement that I think doesn't come across simply for a lot of people. And so they just assume it's a wild, wild west and that nothing's being done, which drives me crazy because of all of the work that is being done. But I think that, as we approach this and as we look at all levels of government to figure out what's going on, really being able to communicate an understanding of how the federal government is engaging with these technologies and our state and local partners is engaging with these technologies to assure safety and security and privacy without hampering innovation, but also we're tech neutral in ensuring that we're not also necessarily endorsing it. We're endorsing the safety outcomes, the accessibility outcomes, the outcomes for the community. That's what we want. This is just our excuse and our way to get there. So I think that if people understand the nuance, which is very hard to get across, they'll appreciate how the department approaches these technologies. And again, I think you'll have a better understanding for how the next administration will approach it as well, because I think there's going to be a lot of things that are similar, even if they're characterized differently.
Right, and on that topic, one major initiative by the department this summer, you announced a voluntary initiative to collect and make public data on autonomous vehicle testing. So tell me, why is this important, and talk a little bit about the importance of transparency.
Absolutely. So, we have a whole bucket of initiatives around promoting collaboration and transparency. I think you're talking about the AV Test Initiative, which is a website that we put up where partners, right now the numbers are limited until we can get the bureaucracy taken care of so we can actually collect information voluntarily. That should happen in the very near future. But partners are able to put up where they're testing, how they're testing. They can connect to their voluntary self-safety assessment. They can provide that transparency to anyone in the public and lawmakers and, first responders and safety officials about what's actually happening around people so that a layperson or user can just pull up a site and see all the testing and operations happening around them, submitted voluntarily, so that people can engage. And this is also part, we've taken lots of advances on data trust. So making sure that the federal government can provide a platform, a third-party organizer, they can take information from private sector partners, they can bring it together, protect their IP so that, people have the safety and freedom to engage with each other, to learn lessons about safety in a digital aspect without having to do it on the road so that everyone can improve safety of the overall ecosystem. But it provides the federal government what they need, it provides innovators what they need, and it makes sure that they can provide the data that they're comfortable with providing and grow and learn from each other over time. And you see that with the Parts Initiative, and you're seeing that in terms of cooperative driving automation with things like the Voices Initiative, which is a direct AV 4.0 outcome. We've seen in the past how the Department of Defense and their investments, even looking at the DARPA challenge, have meant a lot to the safety of this space. This is a way that we're taking these widgets from the Department of Defense, from the security partners, being able to bring it towards innovators, let them shape it and be useful and give the protections they need so that they can test with each other, learn from each other. But again, it's a third-party arm's length thing so that the federal government can get only what they need and the private sector partners can learn from each other. So this is in the proof of concept stage, but it is moving forward. We've got the MOU signed. There's a number of these initiatives that can help provide transparency to the public, give the department what they need to advance rulemakings, and allow innovators to learn safety advancements from each other to improve the overall safety of the ecosystem. So, I mean, a lot of these are AV 4.0 or 3.0 initiatives, but I think that they'll be continued into the future.
That's fascinating because the Department of Defense spends billions making sure that all of its elements and equipment can interoperate easily and safely.
And so, obviously, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon aren't gonna work together unless they can protect their investments.
Right.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had the same thing for automated vehicle innovators?
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift our focus. Let's start with Jamie, and let's shift our focus to Capitol Hill. In the last Congress, the House passed a federal AV bill with strong, overwhelming bipartisan support, but it didn't advance in the Senate. What's going on, and what does the path forward look like?
Sure. Yeah, we've been working to advance AV legislation for, I think, the past 4 years now, and we were able to pass a bill through the House 3 or 4 years ago, and then had some challenges last year. At the end of the day, this is complex. This is new technology, and it is always difficult to get the policy right the first time at the beginning. I think we've learned a lot in the past 4 years, just in the development of the technology and understanding of what the policy challenges are. And I think policymakers have learned a lot as well at the state level and at the federal level. There certainly are still challenges and things that we need Congress to address. Most importantly, probably being the raising the cap on exemptions. When it comes to vehicles on the road today, you have to meet federal motor vehicle safety standards, and they're pretty prescriptive and don't necessarily adapt well to new technologies and new innovations. It takes a lot of time to update those rules, which is where the exemption piece comes in, and that's why it's so important to increase that cap, because at the end of the day, for Finch to do his job, for NHTSA to do their job, to be able to update these regulations, they need the data. As he said, that's how you prove the safety case, and that's how we make sure that what we're putting on the road is safe. So getting that data, the only way to do it is to get these vehicles on the road, because that's really the most, the best way to test in real world scenarios. So that's incredibly important. We've talked in the past about the importance of harmonization across the U.S. You can't engineer for and build vehicles for 50 different states. It just the manufacturing process just doesn't work that way. So that's why that harmonization piece is so important. I think that over the past 4 years, we've, as I said, we've learned a lot and made a lot of progress on the education side. And I think now is a great time to take all of those learnings and it really advance a policy to get these few things across the finish line that we need.
Great. So you mentioned exemptions and you mentioned harmonization. Are there any other elements that a federal bill needs to contain?
Yeah, those are definitely important ones. And to Finch's point about updating FMVSS, making sure that we have that path forward is going to be really incredibly important as well. Those are really the highlights, the high level things that we need. Great.
Let me go over to David. So does the current lack of a federal law, does that, in your view, does that hinder AV deployment?
So there's actually, as we've talked about here, there's actually plenty of federal laws governing AVs. Finch mentioned that there's a whole lot of authority that DOT and its modal administrations have. And under those laws, Waymo's made dramatic progress in 2020. So if we're talking specifically about Congress, a lack of legislation governing AVs specifically isn't really a hindrance for us. But the right legislation can absolutely be an accelerant for safe AV deployment and economic growth. And that's really where, I think the industry really wants to encourage Congress to look at ways to be able to foster the deployment of this technology. With respect to federal AV policy in general, we're engaging with federal policymakers in Congress as well as regulators and the administration on an ongoing basis to help where we can as a company and as an industry. And I think some of our advice would be for them to continue the work that Finch mentioned and that Jamie mentioned about the agencies doing that rulemaking processes. There's a number of them to update the regulations to better reflect the reality of autonomous systems, in particular those regulations that assume a human driver will always be present behind the wheel. So this is really important to point out that this isn't a partisan issue. Both previous administrations, the Obama and Trump administrations, have been supportive of this position to update the regulations that were designed in a time where there was always going to be a human in the vehicle. And we look forward to continuing that bipartisan collaboration with the administration and Congress. In addition, one other thing I'd point out is that the success of advanced driving technology is predicated on the public having trust in its safety. So it's really important that governments use their authority to ensure that unsafe systems, including lower level systems, driver assist that are often misused by consumers, that those unsafe systems are kept off the roads. NHTSA and FMCSA already have this authority, as Finch mentioned. So there's no new laws or regulations that are needed, but it's an area that is really important to make sure we're focusing on to drive that public trust in this new technology.
Great. So both you and Jamie have focused on the importance of public trust and understanding, right? Without which it clearly the transition can't work. Let me go to Finch and then Rachel. Just tell us about your government's efforts to educate the public and increase the overall comfort level with self-driving cars.
Certainly, I'll go first. So one of the things that we've done, and it's actually hilarious because I was listening to a podcast this morning where people were criticizing us for doing nothing in this area. As we look at communications about terminology, the language we use, the capabilities and limitations of the systems, whether they be ADAS systems or driver assist systems or self-driving automated vehicle systems, we've had workshops where we brought everybody together. We publicized it. We took comment on this. We had initiatives where we workshopped specific language with partners that put out a document called Clarifying, now I forget the name of the document, but it was about clearly communicating the capabilities and limitations. The Secretary endorsed this at TRB last year, and the department agreed to incorporate this language in how we approach these technologies and how we speak about these technologies. So making sure that you can clearly communicate the capabilities and limitations is important. Getting everybody to use the same language is important. And there's more work to be done between taking what an engineer means and making sure they can understand each other to what a government wonk hears and making sure that wonks and engineers can communicate with each other. And then the public, what they hear and what they understand, and making sure that they understand, what is actually out there, what's actually operational. The difference between Toyota's Guardian system and Waymo's vehicles, that's important. You wouldn't want somebody expecting to have the same level of engagement in a Waymo vehicle when they're in a Toyota vehicle with their systems. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to because the safeguards are there. But making sure that the consumer can actually understand what's going on in the vehicle, as well as anything that happens if the vehicle is updated over time, that will continue to be one of the key focuses of the department, ensuring the safety of the operations of the people who very much have to be in control of the vehicle at all times today in the vehicles they can buy. That's going to be key to the future confidence and success of these technologies.
Great. Rachel, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Michael, absolutely. And I think that at the end of the day, people are going to be naturally suspicious and worried about something as groundbreaking as an automated vehicle. But the work that we've done has shown that, yes, it's really important that we take the public with us and we alleviate those fears and we have that robust safety system, as the other speakers have said. But what we know also is if we can highlight where the benefits of some of this automation can be felt, and for us in the UK, that it's very often around the sort of rural areas that are more isolated, where people already know there's a lack of public transport, and they're finding it a bit more difficult to switch to electric vehicle ownership because of the sort of charging infrastructure thing. That's where we think we can really promote automated vehicles in time safely and promote them as a solution in some of these areas with a very different type of geography. And I think the other area is very much around people with disabilities, how we can provide freedom and opportunity for people to access some of the things that it's just difficult for them to do at the moment. So our strategy is focused around those positives, but making sure that we are checking in with the public all the time. We do an awful lot of polling, so we know what people's attitudes are and what their fears are, and that's when we can take those and start to address them through our specific policies.
Yes, no, that's great. And I found that people are wary of the concept at first as a concept, but also when they actually have the experience and they ride in one of these vehicles, that their view is totally transformed. It's a remarkable thing.
Yes.
So, one important thing about automated vehicles is people think about the benefits in terms of transport, which are huge, but there are also all these corollary societal benefits. One major focus of the UK's strategy, of the UK's government is decarbonizing transport. Tell me how self-driving fits into that effort.
Yeah, it definitely does. And actually, your point is so right, Michael. The first time I went in an automated vehicle, I didn't even realise it had switched into automated mode because it was just, to all intents and purposes, it was just the same experience. And you're right, people feel that, and that will drive the appetite and the interest. But yes, our decarbonisation strategy is something that we've ramped up massively in the middle of COVID because we're really focusing on a green recovery in the UK. So we have announced that we will be phasing out the sale of new petrol and diesel cars and vans from 2030, with a bit of a transition period for hybrid vehicles until 2035. And we see automated vehicles being an integral part of this because obviously most of them are electric or they have alternative fuel sources. And we see them very much playing into the whole freight side of things. So we are looking at a huge amount of British success stories in this particular sector with the automated and the freight solutions. And this is where we really feel that we in the UK can actually, obviously we have strong competition with our US friends, but we feel we do have a lot of advantages, sort of homegrown advantages in these sectors. And so obviously we know that freight, last mile deliveries and heavy freight has been ticking up during the pandemic because people have been buying online, ordering from home. And so our emissions have been very stubborn, even throughout this whole period. So we definitely need a solution to decarbonising that sector. And that's where we see the automated side of things really coming into play.
Great. So Finch, Rachel just brought up the benefits of autonomous vehicles for non-able-bodied people. I know the DOT has spent a great deal of time focused on accessibility issues. Tell me a bit about how AVs can help provide opportunities for people with disabilities, and how do you design to maximize those outcomes?
Absolutely. I guess the best example of how the department's approaching these opportunities is through our Inclusive Design Challenge. And what it is, it's focused on bringing together innovators, the people actually creating this technology, the engineers and the people that hold the purse strings, bring them together with people that actually have disabilities or are advocates or understand the needs of people, whether it be cognitive, auditory, visual, or mobility. They need a wheelchair. Bringing them together all on one page to be able to work and start thinking together and partnering to make sure that as engineers are creating these vehicles and updating them and evolving over time, they're taking into account the needs of people with these types of disabilities. And I'm just thrilled at the types of applications we've gotten and that have been awarded. I think it's going to be tremendous opportunities and partnerships and just a community of experts that are going to be working on this and drawing attention to this further over the next year and beyond. I think that, the work that's going to be done there will not only change automated vehicles, but will change the future of people that have disabilities so that they can engage in the workforce, that they can, take the steps they need, they can go visit their families more easily. Ultimately, this is something that will involve the majority of people because whether you consider the aging process or otherwise, the majority of Americans will have a disability at some point in their lives. Let's be planning for how we can take care of those people. Let's plan to make sure that the technology can adapt and accommodate people with those disabilities so that we can have the future that we want, that's safer, that's more efficient, that's more accessible, and that really is the future that we want to have going forward.
Great. And with that, I believe we are out of time. This has been an excellent discussion. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. That was great.
Thank you all
Thank
so much
you.
for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.